The year is 1945. It's a dark and stormy night. A stranger comes in from the darkness carrying a basket, a precious baby girl that he dropped off at an orphanage and disappears. Well, the next day, the nuns find this baby girl on the doorstep. So they don't know what else to call her. They call her Jane. And then Jane grows up wondering, who is my mother? Who is my father? I was left as a foundling on the doorstep of this hospital. Well, when Jane is 17, she grows up to be this beautiful young woman, and she meets this handsome stranger, and it's love at first sight. But it was not meant to be. They quarrel, and her boyfriend stomps off, but it's a very sad story. Very sad. It's a tragedy. Jane is left abandoned and pregnant. She finds out she's pregnant. 9 months later, she's rushed to the hospital and delivers a beautiful baby girl. But that same night, someone smashes open the window of the hospital and kidnaps Jane's baby girl. And it's even worse than this. It turns out she's bleeding rapidly. The doctors have to perform an emergency experimental operation to save the life of Jane. They change Jane into Jim. Well, Jim wakes up the next day with this huge headache. She was left as a foundling on a doorstep of an orphanage, falls in love at 17, is abandoned, gets pregnant, somebody steals her baby, and now she's not even Jane anymore. She's Jim. Well, Jim gets into barroom fistfights anytime someone says, "Hey, Jim, where'd you come from anyway? Who's your mother? Who's your father? Who are you anyway?" So now Jim is once again stone drunk on the bottom of a bar. The bartender comes up to him and says, Jim, wake up, wake up. I'm really a time traveler. Come into my machine and we'll figure out who is Jane/Jim. So they go way back into the past, way back. And then Jim is somewhere in the past. He's kind of disoriented. But then he meets this beautiful 17-year-old girl. And it's love at first sight. But you know, it was not meant to be. They quarrel. And Jim stomps off into the darkness. But then Jim finds out, hey, I just found out. My girlfriend's pregnant. Oh my God, I want my baby to get the best education possible. So 9 months later, he goes to the hospital. Smashes open the hospital window. Goes in and kidnaps his own precious baby girl. And then he goes back to the time machine. Back, way back into the past. Until it is 1945. It is a dark and stormy night. Jim comes into the darkness carrying a precious baby girl that he drops off at an orphanage. The next day, the nuns pick up this baby girl. They don't know what else to call her, so they call her Jane. And Jane wonders, who is my mother? My father? I was up as a foundling on the doorstep of this hospital. Well, Jim finally says to himself, you know, I don't want to be a barroom drunk all my life. I'm going to get my act together. I'm going to join the Time Traveler's Corps. So Jim has many heroic exploits in the annals of time. Now, Jim is an old man. He says, on his retirement day, I want permission for one last mission in time. I'm going to put on a wig. I'm going to go backwards in time to impersonate a bartender, to meet a certain barroom drunk who gets into fistfights anytime someone says, who are you, Jim? Who's your mother? Your father. Now, for 10 points, who can tell me? Who is Jane's mother, father, son, daughter, grandfather, great-granddaughter, great-great-great-grandfather, great-great-great-daughter? Yeah?
Jane.
Jane is a family tree unto herself. Can you imagine a family get together and they get into a food fight and someone says, you did that to me. No, you did that to yourself, okay? Think about this, because we physicists are actually studying that story. Next slide. So, one way to travel through the portals of space and time is something called a wormhole, something which we study a lot. Well, 150 years ago, in merry old England, there was a professor of mathematics at Oxford who knew about these things. Next slide. Mathematicians call these things multiply connected spaces.